Hi, welcome to Next Level Contractor. I'm Michael Bourgeois, and we are here today with Noah Davis. This is part 4 with the generous Mr. Noah Davis. He has given us all kinds of information. Noah is a entrepreneur many times over. He has partnership or ownership in several different companies. He has a roofing and general contracting business. He has an exam prep business, an insurance company. He has a a all-star baseball card collection. So he's actually famous for it, which I found out pretty recently. So he's a very successful guy, and we're fortunate to have him here to come and help us coach young, and I say young, but what I mean is new contractors go from A to Z or day 0 to day 365 or day 800, and not become a statistic. We on our podcast we help new contractors make it through that scary first year or make it from $0 to $1 million without going bust, right? Or that's the goal anyway. So we're super grateful to have Noah help walk us through and talk us through some of the. Today we're talking about personal development and leadership topics regarding having a contracting business. So thank you for joining us, Noah, once again.
Thank you for having me, Michael. Really excited again.
Personal development and leadership questions have come in, and we've organized them. So just to try to, keep keep the topic consistent for the podcast and for the listeners or viewers. So you're a busy guy. We'll get right to it. How how can I transition from worker to business owner mindset?
Okay,
That's a
so
big one.
that's a really big one and can be a long one. So maybe we'll take it in bite sizes here. Um, I I think that first of all that the transition comes from it comes at different stages and where you are. Partially that it has an impact from your personal life. So if your personal life is in disarray or you're having some issues that are affecting you, you can't be in the mindset. You can't be in that mindset because you're just thinking day to day. You have to get away from day to day thinking and more planning, week to week, month to month, year to year planning. That's being able to actually sit down and plan something beyond a week or a month is going to be their first step. So if you can't project your business or look at a calendar and look at 6 months from now and have a general reasonable sense of where you're going to be or on some kind of trajectory, then you may not be at that point yet. You may be still living kind of day to day, week to week, taking whatever jobs you can get, and doing whatever you can to put food on the table and to pay your bills and things like that. So it's not yet for everybody, but it doesn't mean you can't get there. And everybody does pretty much get there, right? Um, at some point, you find your groove and you find what you're going to be good at, and you start learning from your mistakes so you don't do them again. But part of it is, I believe, if you can just have the ability to plan, right? If you can sit down and make projections that are reasonable, not pie in the sky projections of, well, I want to do $10 million this year, when you're only doing 500,000, right? Reasonable projections to where you're going to be. It doesn't mean that you have to be a $10 million company to do that. It could be you did $250,000 and you have a reasonable expectation that you can get to 500,000 next year, right? It doesn't matter what stage you're in. You can transition into that mindset. Um, but part of it is uh, being able to, I think as a business owner, your ultimate goal is to make money while you sleep, right? And how do you make money while you sleep? It doesn't mean actually sleeping, but it means where you're making money, where you're not the one physically or or doing every task, right? You're able to actually go hire or go have somebody else do some of the things that you basically take your vision and expand on it. Um, And so that could be that you've gotten to a point where you can hire an office admin, an operations director, a crew leader, a superintendent, or someone like that, where you don't have to be on the job site at all times, and you can go out and focus on your business development and your marketing and networking and things like that. So that's really part one, to kind of think about, are you there yet? And not everybody is, and that's okay. You're gonna have, it's gonna be a journey, and don't expect to go from zero to whatever your goal is overnight. And I think it for me, I've been through situations where I've grown very quickly and thought, well, that's great, and I'm getting close to my goals, but like rising too fast means you're going to
Mm,
fall fast, right?
mm,
You invest in a stock that goes straight up, or invest in something that goes straight up. What comes up must always come down, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to come straight down, but you should expect there to be bumps. It should be wavy. You should be a gradual hill moving up, and not a shooting up or shooting down. You don't want those highs and lows. You want to, you know, in the financial world, there's something called the VIX, or the volatility index, and it measures how volatile the environment is in the stock market, or in a particular set of stocks. When there's a lot of up and down, that's a scary time to invest. It's the same thing with your business. You don't want a volatile situation. You don't want to rely on a job, one job that does $1 million, and the rest of the time you don't have anything. You want to get to the point where you have steady business, and that you can predict your business. You have a pipeline of business coming in, and so that allows you to predict, can I go out and hire someone? Because now I can project, okay, I know every month I'm going to be bringing in X amount of dollars, and I know that not one job can sink me, right? I think you want to get to the point where you're you can sleep at night, right? Number one, and you're going to have overhead. You've got to be able to, take some of the release some of the reins of, from how you do things, and be able to pass it on to someone else. Becoming a leader, right? That's part of taking that next step. You got to have people under you. You're in a business. You're going to have people. You're going to employ people. People are going to rely on you, and they're going to look to your leadership. So if you can become a leader, that's your first step.
That's a lot to unpack, Noah.
Mhm.
That was a lot. Wow. So, I want to go back to what you first touched on. You mentioned, if a person's doing 500,000, they shouldn't expect to, set a goal of 10 million. Um, what do you think is something reasonable to set? Now, that's a loaded question because, every industry within the construction industry, right? Every trade might have a different margin, might have a different goal that they're working for. Some people are shooting for DOT contracts, and some people are just specializing in residential. So you mentioned going from 250, or quarter million to half a million as a reasonable goal, and I agree, right? It's just, I'm wondering, but that's double, right? So would a realistic goal be to double your income every year for a period of time, or would, or like you mentioned, like slow incremental growth being better? I mean, what do you think is a realistic goal for a brand new contractor to set for themselves on
Right.
average?
So early on, I do think your expectation should be to double, and that sounds like a lot, but it's not, because if your first year you did $100,000, you know, $100,000 after all your expenses is not going to be enough to pay yourself an honest wage to survive, right? So you've got to get to 200,000. You've got to get to, and once you get to 250,000, that means you might be, depending on the size of your jobs, you're going to hire someone. Well, now you've got added pressure. So the added pressure brings on, more that you should be able to take on. But I do think that up until, if I was starting out, I would be looking at, whatever that first year is, double and double and double, like 2 or 3 times before you get to the point where you now have to rely on other factors. Like a lot of your early success is coming from your hard work, pounding the pavement, getting jobs, and you're working as hard as you can. At some point, you can't be everywhere, right? You have to hire people who you're gonna have to rely on, and you're gonna have to deploy marketing tactics and spend time strategizing how you can do things differently. And so that at that point, yes, you're the it should the pace of growth will decrease, but that's okay, because you've hit a certain threshold. That's you have a livable wage, and now you're really focused on, okay, how can I grow specific sectors of my business? You have to look at keeping your costs low. You have to look at other factors. In the beginning, it's really all about growth. There's not a lot, you can really spend on if you don't have the business. So I do think that if you're looking at it from zero, going from, if your baseline was $100,000, 200,000, then 400, then 800. I think those are reasonable steps early on in a business.
Gotcha. And you mentioned it's all about growth. So I've heard some smart people in the past say things like, If you're not growing, you're dying."
Hmm.
Right? There's really no level that you get to where now you can just coast. Would you agree?
A hundred, 100%.
Coasting is the most dangerous thing you can do. You're either gonna grow or you're gonna die. Start to decline. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, and you know why? It's because of people that I just described, the hungry people that are out there doubling early
They're gonna
on.
come
They're
eat your
taking your
lunch,
business.
those
They're
hungry
taking
people.
Once you get to the point where you're growing at 5% or 10% or whatever it is, and you're doing millions of dollars or whatever it is, you have all the young ones who are they have to get to a certain number to survive, right? So they're gonna do whatever they can to eat your lunch. They're gonna undercut you because they don't have the overhead. So you have an advantage early on, right? In your first couple of years where you don't have the overhead, you don't have a lot of the headaches that you're gonna have in the future. So that gives
You're
you
the
an
lunch
advantage.
eater early on.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So you have to take advantage of that and be the disruptor early on, right? You're willing to take it. If a typical margin for a company is, they won't take a job unless they're going to net 30% margins, let's say, you know, well, if you're starting out, I'll take 25, I'll take 20 because I'm doing the work, I'm doing everything, right? So what's the difference? So you're going to undercut them. You're going to say you're going to provide personal service because I'm going to be there. I'm going to be the contractor on site. I'm going to be you can, here's my cell phone. Here's whatever you need, Mr. Customer, I'll be there for you. The second you grow to a point where you have staff, they're not dealing with the owner, right? They're dealing with hopefully you hired a great operations person, superintendent, project manager, but there's always a feeling of comfort when the client has the owner's phone number, right? They get that. So take advantage of those early years when you have that opportunity to do that, and you're okay with that, because you won't be at some point. You're not going to want, when you have 17 clients, then you're doing 17 jobs at the same time, you don't want 17 clients having your cell phone number to call you and having that pressure. You want to pass it off to some other person, right? And so you're gonna want that. It's to have some freedom, but in the beginning, you've got to use every trick in the book, every advantage you have, and that's why I do believe you can double early on, is because you have a distinct advantage over the other companies that are more established. Yes, they have an advantage in terms of marketing, but think about how many leads and how many jobs they need to do to sustain their business, right? You may only need one or two. They might need 10, 20, 30 jobs, right? To do that one you're working on, you know how much money you're going to.
Well, we had a little technical difficulty. Lost you for a few seconds there, Noah. Sorry about that. Can you hear me okay?
I'm back. Yes, I can hear you.
All right. All right. Good deal.
Okay.
Um, Well, you were on a roll too, so but we interrupted that train. Let me redirect a little bit. Same topic. It's something that you mentioned earlier about. Yeah, I think you compared it to buying a stock that goes straight up. It's going to have to come down. I've heard it said that you will never outgrow your level of preparedness. So if you grow too fast and
Hmm.
you're not ready for that, you're not ready to handle that, then it's all going to come crashing back down to the level that you're able to comfortably handle. It is that kind
That
of what your experience has been? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and that actually is, that's a great, like, think of a great sports reference. The players who were, who worked the hardest. Who were the players who worked the hardest in basketball? Kobe was always the guy who trained harder than anybody. So when everybody else was tired, you fall to the level of your training, right? And that's kind of what I think what you're saying in terms of you fall to the level of your preparation and your
Maybe your
baseline
leadership
for your
abilities,
right. Yeah, exactly.
whatever it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, So, okay, how about this? That gets a good segue into this next question we have here. What leadership skills do I need to build a strong team? I mean, what leadership skills are we talking about here? Like,
Mhm.
what what do we need to develop to be able to grow and then not shrink back down? Where like
Mhm.
who do we need to become to get to that next level?
Right. So, being a leader requires you to make decisions. Okay. And a lot of people um, waste a lot of time thinking about their decisions. Okay. So, a strong leader is someone who makes a decision, whether they're right or wrong, but they make a decision and go in a direction, and they force their team to follow that direction. Meaning, and and you can read a lot about this, and there's a lot of business leaders over time, and this is something they talk about, where if you come to a crossroads about something and you have to make a decision, the worst thing you can do is to not make a decision or delay your decision. The longer you do
Mm,
that, the longer you're stuck in this limbo period, and your team is also stuck. Like, you are the bottleneck, right? You don't want to become a bottleneck for your team. You want them to be actively working and moving in some direction. The direction could be wrong, and a lot of people get it wrong, but the sooner you make a decision and you figure it out, the sooner you're going to get to the right path, right? So I believe in when I'm working with our team is making a decision, if coming listening to all the perspectives, getting, brainstorming, coming together, figuring out what are the options, and then making a decision. This is the decision, this is where we're going, and be firm about it. Be firm about your decision, whatever that is. That shows you're a leader, right? That shows you're, you know and the team may not like it. Okay, well, team, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to move forward in this direction, right? And you let it play out. Let's see what happens, and then quickly determine if it's not the right decision. Okay, we made the wrong decision. Now we're going to move to the other direction and turn around and fix it. Don't let it sit there. You have to be able, as a leader, to listen to your team, hear the advice, and then make a decision. You are the leader. Don't. It's not always good to say, "Hey, team, what do you think about everything?" You can ask that, but at some point you have to listen and decide on a path. You have to say, I believe we're going to go this way, and I've heard your advice, and I appreciate your advice. This is the direction we're going to go in, and let's all move in this direction. So that's part one of being a leader, is decision making.
decision making. So, what if you're and I could just picture this, you know, as far as a person that is wanting to be decisive and make decisions, and they're sort of, attempting that type of leadership for the first time in their own business.
Mhm.
Is there a strategy that you use to go about directing the team in, especially if you're, steering the ship in a different direction or trying something new? You're not seeking their advice, but there is probably some degree of buy-in that you'd be looking for from them, so that they're not begrudgingly following your orders. You're probably not just barking out orders at the team. Is there a is there a strategy that you use to to deliver information?
Yeah, absolutely. You want what are the best leaders? The best leaders are the ones who make their teams come to the realization that's the path they should be on. And how do you? So it's a little bit like lobbying, right? You have to guide your team into here are the different options I'm thinking about. Let's look at the pros and cons of each of them. And if you know the path you want to be on, the best thing to do is to get that buy-in right from the beginning, right? You want that buy-in. So you want to guide your team to the path you want to be on. It does sometimes you don't have that choice. Sometimes it's like it's cut and dry. We're just going down this path, guys. This is what we're doing. Let's get on board and let's go for it. And you're going to have those times, and the team's going to be some of the team members are going to be upset, and hopefully you have team members who respect you enough to, they do need to have some respect for you as their leader, right? So, and hopefully they have that, and then they know that in general, if you have a reputation that the majority of times the decisions you make are the right ones, or at least in the right direction, and they see that you have good rationale behind it, good thinking behind it, they're going to respect when you just make a snap decision and you say, this is what we're doing. They're going to be like, well, this guy probably knows what he's doing because he's made a lot of decisions and look how they've worked out. So you're going to build credibility with your team. So at some point when you have to make difficult decisions, that they're going to respect it. But you want to get buy-in from your teams, and you want them to be the ones to come to the conclusion that this is the path to go on.
This episode of the Next Level Contractor is sponsored by One Contractor Solutions, Florida's leading provider of back office services for builders, contractors, subcontractors, and developers. From permit expediting and private provider services to contractor municipality registrations, insurance supplement assistance, and bookkeeping, they are your one-stop shop for managing your contractor back office. Save time and money with One Contractor Solutions. Get a free, no-obligation quote today at www.onecontractorsolutions.com or call 954 233-0155. So I'd say bottom line, you need their respect, and so you need to be respectable. That's for sure. So
Right.
that's probably some stuff that would cause some self-reflection from some people. So be respectable, and it's easy to be respected, I'm sure, by your team.
Well,
Hmm.
I think there are situations, and I'm not probably most people that are starting out in the construction business don't go down this path, but there are a percentage of people that go in and buy another company, right? So they go and
Mhm.
buy an existing construction business or contractor business because it's the easiest path to do it, right? It may be hard for them to get the license, they have issues with it, or they have a little bit of money and they want to enter a market and that's what they want to do. Well, when you buy a business, you do inherit the old owners, their people, right? And so you have to build respect, from those people, and you're going to usually encounter a percentage of the people who are not going to be willing to go with you, meaning they're not going to buy into what you're saying because they're so used to a certain, working a certain way. The old owner may have had a really relaxed you had a super relaxed environment where the owner owned it for 30 years or 20 years and did things. This is the way they did it. And they grew, their pace of growth was 1%, 2% a year, or some years they went down, some they went up. It is really hard to come in as a new owner and be like an entrepreneur and be like, we're going to grow 20%, 100% this year. And I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I've run into many situations like that where you take on a business and you just have encounter people that are not going to buy into your vision, and they say everything you do is wrong. This guy doesn't know because he hasn't been in the business for 20 years like I have, and this is how we've done it for 20 years. This is how it's got to be. You know what? Sometimes you're going to just have to let those people go. It's really, even if you have to, sometimes they can become cancers to the rest of your company,
Mm,
meaning that you could have 80% of your people buy into your vision, and you have 20% that's just talking, right? They're saying, "Well, I don't know if we should listen to him. He's going to screw up our company." You have to make the determination who's on board and who's not, and who's going to be chirping in the wrong way, because that can be detrimental to your company. And this can happen whether you started it and you hired people, and those people have their own agenda, right? You have to be wary of those things, and you have to recognize those kinds of people, because they will make your lives miserable, and you will be constantly fighting these people to get your vision through. Um, and ultimately, most people who work for you, they want to know they really want to know, are they going to get is there going to be a reliable paycheck at the end of the day, right? Every week or every month that I'm getting paid, do I have any thought in my head that I may not get my paycheck? Because in this industry, unfortunately, there's a lot of companies that go bust, right? And so what happens is, if you've been working in this industry for a long time and you go from company to company, you experience a situation where there's a missed payroll, or there's a late paycheck, or the owner decided that I'm not paying you commission on this deal, or whatever it is, right? That happens a lot, unfortunately. And so there's a mindset that's built up from those employees that, like, they're fearful literally every week. Am I going to get paid? And so, but you can have people who are constantly talking in everybody's ear and say, I heard they're not doing so well. They're spending a lot on marketing, and I don't see the jobs coming in. Well, they don't really know. That's not helpful for employees in your company to be saying that about you. It's gonna,
right.
so you got to make
Yeah,
decisions
not at all.
early on about that. Yeah,
Gotcha. So, yeah, and I had not thought about that. Treating an existing business like a new business, because it would be new to you if you bought it. That would
Mhm.
be a challenge right there.
Right.
Wow. But I guess you have a lot of experience with that, which is pretty cool.
Unfortunately, yes, yes. Unfortunately,
Well,
yeah. Mhm.
well, thanks for sharing that. I'm sure there
Mhm.
are some people listening to this right now that have purchase someone else's contract, or skilled trade business, or are considering shopping around for someone's skilled trade business
Mhm.
to purchase. So that's good to look out for sure. Next question, Noah, is how do I handle stress and avoid burnout as a business owner?
Mhm. Part of the where does stress come from? Okay, most people who are business owners can handle the responsibility of getting the jobs, paying their employees. You wouldn't be in that. You probably didn't get to that position if you were someone who was always nervous about that, right? You most
Right.
likely didn't get there. Um, but uh, the outside factors that are going to lead to the stress are the
I was
things that
going to
are
say every direction is how I was going to answer your question. Where does stress come from? Is that not the right answer?
um what I'm saying is that I do think in general, people in a ownership position or in a CEO position, they can handle a lot of stress. What happens is, when their personal life impacts the business, that's where I believe the stress comes in, right? If you're an employee, right, you go to work, you clock out whenever you clock out, you go home, you don't even think. Do you even think about what happens in that business, overnight? You're not really thinking about it for the most part. I mean, as long as you believe you have that job and you're not going to get fired, you probably are like, okay, I'm going to go do my thing. The business owner mindset is they never stop thinking about the business, right? If you're not, if you're able, so when the personal life encounters the business life, so for instance, you're not bringing enough money in, and therefore you're not able to pay the bills. That's stress. Have you added debt to the business? I've been, unfortunately, through learning experience, and I think a lot of, unfortunately, most business owners have debt. Okay, and they have debt, different kinds of debt, and I believe that's probably one of the number one stresses in a business, is the debt, because debt can get out of control, not just because you the payments can get out of control, and the way that new contractors and contractors in general borrow money is they borrow money from places that are very aggressive. I'm not talking about loan sharks and all that, but all the financial instruments today that people borrow
Mhm.
from are instruments designed to if you really looked at the analysis, the interest rates are out of control. And then just to give you an example, there's a lot of and these are big companies that do financing. But if you borrowed, let's say, $100,000 from your business, and you start paying
Mhm.
it back week one, and you're paying back it over a year, right? You and let's say they say, well, the interest rate it's only 12%. It's not, that's okay. That's less than a credit card. Well, the truth is you're starting to pay back that money every week, every week, every week. And if you compound that number, it ends up being like 100%. I mean, and so what happens is a company gets into the habit of relying on outside money to keep funding their payables. And then, oh, I got a big payroll. I got and so if you keep layering it on, meaning you paid it back and you keep taking it, if you think about it, if you really do the math, the numbers are so astronomical that most businesses cannot survive many layers of it. Meaning, you did it for a few years. At some point, the chickens are going to come home to roost. And
Right, you
I've been
can't keep going into a little bit more debt and a little bit more debt and a little bit more debt without
because
ever paying
you're
it off.
giving you're yeah because you're paying your profits to them. And so unless your profits are 100% margins, they don't exist, right? Your margins might be at, your after all your expenses, your margins might be at 10%, 15, 20%. Okay.
Mm.
I just told you that if you borrow at a 10 or 12% interest rate, and you are on these weekly or monthly payments forced to pay them back, you're at more than 50%. Okay. So that means that over time, as you keep borrowing and keep doing this year after year after year, even if it doesn't look like you have a lot of debt, your payments and that all your profits are going to them. And at some point,
Wow,
you're
so
going to have
you're
to let them
saying
go.
even a 12% interest rate on a loan, it really, you end up
Un-
paying like 50%?
Unless you're with a traditional bank. So if you're with a traditional bank and you've got a traditional line of credit where it's a true line of credit, you've taken out 50,000, you're making interest payments only, and at some point you're going to make the lump sum or something like that. That's a traditional loan. But nowadays
Oh, you're
lenders.
talking about all the different loan offers that would come to, like, a new
Mhm,
business owner or a new contractor,
right,
50,000 business line,
they're
500,000,
yeah,
that
you
kind of
see them in the form of merchant cash advances. You see them in the form of even credit card advances and things like that. If you really were to look at the numbers, and because you're starting to pay it back day one, you're paying back on a weekly basis a percentage of it, which means that really, if you compound it, meaning you look at what is the true interest that you're paying, it's 50, 100%. It's so astronomical. You'd be sick even if you really, thought about that process. So getting back to the point of, I do believe debt is one of the biggest stressors for any business. And if you can, and I personally been through terrible situations of debt that I thought, well, if I can grow my business at a 20% a year, I can grow my business at 30% a year. If I can get some debt, I can
if you
accelerate
use
my
debt,
growth.
you could grow okay, got it, right.
Exactly. Right.
Which is, I'm
If I
sure,
use
what
that,
everyone thinks.
everybody thinks that, and then just things happen, and then you rely on the debt. I need more debt because I'm growing. Look at how fast I'm growing. I'm adding new jobs. I'm adding new jobs. But in reality, look, go. What debt does is it clouds your ability to look at your financial statements and your profit and loss and see the true picture, because your profit and
Mm,
loss does not show you all the debt movement. It shows you the interest expense. Okay, that's a line item on your profit and loss, but it does not show you the cash flow statement. And most people have a very hard time reading a cash flow statement. And that's what truly matters at the beginning of a business, is your cash flow. It's all about cash flow. Okay.
okay.
And you'll see, if you look at your cash flow statement and you have debt, you're going to see a portion of your weekly payments or monthly payments is that cash going out of the business. Okay. And you're replenishing it with large sums of money, and I see this a lot. I'm not, I've spent years and years and years to get to the point in some of my businesses where I'm debt free, and it's one of the most liberating things after being through years and years of relying on debt to grow. You think you're doing the right thing, but the only people who win are the banks. That's the reality.
So
And if
you're
you can
debt free
survive,
in your business? Congratulations. Not a lot of people can say that.
it's definitely the stress of debt and making sure to make those payments. And I mean, there's just, you could be doing great, and but your debt is accelerating faster and your payments are faster than you're growing. You're going to have rainy days, and without that cash cushion, and without something to help you, that's where I think that's where a lot of my stress came from when I was, in some other situations where it was usually debt and all the decisions I had to make around debt. Meaning I had to decide, well, we can't afford to hire this person, we can't afford to do this. And I wasn't able to look at my financial statements and see the true picture. On the surface, everything looked great, but there was more cash going out than coming in. And that's where, and then it just, and then it can only happen for so long. You're not the US government. You can't just print money, right? So you can't get out of it. Eventually
Yeah.
you have to make tough decisions, and you got to be like, well, I didn't realize that I was really losing $100,000 a month, and now I got to go fire a bunch of people. I mean, these things creep up on you so quickly when you have debt. And so, as much as it's very hard, and I'm not saying, and again, I did it. I used debt. I did it for many years, and not to say that I may, hopefully I won't have, hopefully that won't happen to me again. But if you can get to the point where you're building your business without debt,
Mhm.
you will take away, I think, at least 50% of the stress that comes along with running a business.
Wow. So how to avoid stress? Try not to go into debt, huh?
Correct.
That's
Yeah.
the real answer to that question. Yeah, I have
That's
no
what I
no problem
think.
believing that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, do you feel like debt has its place? Do you feel like there's a necessary aspect to it at any point, or is it really just something like, red alert, avoid at all costs?
So I'm not a, who's the guy who's like the no deck guy? I can't remember his name now.
Dave
Um,
Ramsey.
Dave's Ramsey. Yeah. He's got a that's his stance, and I'm not like all there. I do believe there is a place for it. Um, Especially, being strategic about things. But the majority of the products that are related to debt for businesses 1 to 5 years or below a certain threshold are they're just a way to get around the usury laws. So they're telling you it's 12%, but when you compound it, it doesn't work. The math doesn't play out. You're just in the construction business. You think you can beat it because you're dealing with big numbers. Like, oh, I've got $1 million job, I'm only borrowing 100,000. Oh, now that job takes longer. I got to extend the 100,000. I got to extend. It's hard. So yes, there is a place for it in the construction. I'm not going to say that there isn't a place for it. I'm just saying that you should strive to eliminate it as quickly as possible. If you have a job that needs some contractor financing, think about extending your supplier terms, right? Get net 30 from your suppliers,
Got it. Net
things like
30,
that.
net
Try to
60,
work
work
around
towards
it.
that. Okay.
Yeah. But I'm not going to say that people shouldn't do it. I'm just saying that it will create stress. Okay. And
Mhm.
if you can eliminate it, you will feel liberated. And if you can grow without it, I'm not saying not to use credit cards or things like that, but try to pay them off every month, right? Or pay them off every month. If you can do that, I believe you've eliminated 50% of the possible stresses that are out there. Because there are so much nuances that come with debt.
Got it. Well, I'm sure 99% of people, that's resonating with them in a big way. I have no
Mhm.
doubt. So Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Want to avoid stress and burnout, then avoid debt
Because
as much as you can avoid debt. I
Because
got you.
what does the burnout come from? It comes from stressful situations. If you're having fun in
Right.
your job, if you're enjoying what you're doing, you're not gonna have burnout. That's why you see people work till 70 or 80 years old because they enjoy what they do and they love growing and they love taking on projects. But I guarantee you, if your job day was filled with how do I pay off this debt and how do I move money around and how do I, you know, where's my next revolver going to come? You know, my debt revolver, whatever is going to come. You don't want to be in that, and you're going to be like, I want vacation. I want to get away from work. You want to get to the point where you enjoy being at work, so that I think a lot of people see work sometimes as a vacation from their family. But that's if you love it. If you really love it and enjoy it, and you enjoy what you're doing, then I think it can be.
Yeah, I mean, family's hard work, so yeah,
It is.
I can
Yeah.
see yeah, if you love
Yeah.
going to work.
Mhm. Right.
That's funny. I haven't heard that before. That's pretty good. All right. Next question. I mean, I know we're pushing it on time. Again, I really appreciate this. Just one more question, if it's all right. What are the secrets to building long term client relationships?
Um, So when early on, right, when we talked about when you are the owner and you're giving the client your cell phone number,
Oh, that's
I
every
mean,
client's dream, right? That's every customer's
right.
dream.
So that, what does long-term client relationships mean? It means where they feel that there's such a reason to stay with you or work with you that they're not even thinking about anybody else. So what are the things you can do? And so early on it's the personal things, right? It's the owner to client direct communication. It's the transparency. But over time, as you grow and you have more people under you and you have to pass on your methods to your staff so they employ it, you have to develop processes, and processes meaning you have to show that you're different than other people, than other contractors. um, and it's the little things. Clients appreciate the little things, and what I've seen, especially in the construction world, when you're doing your estimates, are you when if meaning does the client see a consistency across the board um, with estimators, customer service, crew members, superintendents? Are they all wearing their uniforms? It's basics. Do they all have their uniform on? Do they all have like a nice demeanor about them? They all answer a certain way. Um, that's step one, right? That delivers a sense of professionalism that eliminates half of your competition, because half of your competition is not doing that. They're not half the competition. You've got two guys show up, they're wearing black t-shirts. Two guys show up, they're wearing someone else's company's uniform on it because you're borrowing
Right.
crew from people. It's so simple. And I get it that you have temporary crew workers, right? You have people who are they work with you and they're subcontractors. Get them to put on your stupid
Give them a
shirts,
shirt.
right? Just
There you go.
give them a shirt. Like you print a hundred shirts to have ready to hand out to people, because that's step one. You look so unprofessional if you don't do that. Okay. Um, so that's step and then the second thing is touch
So
points.
branding is important, huh?
Yeah, branding. But the second thing is touch points, is the number of touches you have with a client. You think about how many opportunities you have with a client. Let's just take an example. Um, Client call, you get a lead. A lead comes in. Um,
Right.
it comes in via a web form or something like that. Well, what's the first thing that happens? You've got phone call, text, email, right? That's three opportunities. Person gets them on the phone, they do an estimate, they follow up with an estimate with a video proposal. I mean, there's softwares out there, you can do video proposals to see the person's face. You're talking to them on the phone. How great would it be is if the person followed up with a video with the screen share that showed your face while you're doing it. You've created some kind of connection with the person because they see your face. Then when the estimator an estimator is going to come to your house to do an estimate, they're calling the day, they're calling the day before. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I'm John. I'm the estimator. I'm going to see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. I'm excited to see. Is there anything I should know ahead of time? That's another touch point. The morning of, hey, Mrs. Smith, I'm calling. This is John. I'm on my way. I'm going to be there at 7:57 in the morning. It's a weird thing to say. My timing is showing on 7:57. Is there any parking restrictions that I should be aware of? Right. Another touch point. Then when you're at the estimate, you're doing the estimate, you're videoing the estimate so that you can send the video to the client. Okay. And now the client has another touch point beyond your estimate. So and then when it's time to actually do the job, you've got the crew is acting the same way, or the crew leader is calling ahead of time, making sure that they're professional. Is there anything that I should be aware of? There's never enough touch points in this industry, never enough, because there is a skepticism from the client that's been built up over years of mistrust in the industry that someone's going to come in, do a terrible job, and they're going to leave, and I'm never going to hear from them again. Right. So
Yeah.
I can tell you that the more times you communicate with them before, after, during, and after, right afterwards, I'm calling to follow up, and it depends on the client. If it's a client, it's a one-time client, you calling to follow up and get a review and referral, right? So, or if it's a commercial client and you can get more business out of them, checking in with them every 6 months, having an account manager that pops in and brings bagels or donuts or whatever it is. I mean, again, it depends on your situation, but that's going to be establishing relationships, I believe, is professionalism, touch points, and follow up. I mean, that's the basics when it comes to that.
Well, man, I sure appreciate it, Noah. You give us so much great information, and thanks for being so willing to share. It's I know you got to go. I'm sure we probably ought to wrap it up too. I'm sure that all of our listeners and viewers are probably on information overload right now. So uh, once again, really, really appreciate it, Noah. Thanks for joining us, and thanks to anyone that's listening or watching. If you got something out of it, please, like, subscribe, share. It helps us out a ton. It really, really does. The more feedback we get, the more likes, the more subscriptions, the more shares we get, the more videos we can make. Leave a comment, ask a question. Don't hesitate. Just let us know if there's anything that you want us to discuss on this podcast, anything that you're wondering. So maybe we can get you back again, Noah. Would you come back, one more time?
Absolutely, sure.
All right, because I know you got a lot more to give. So if we can get it all out of you, man, if we can wring you out, that would be great. So really appreciate it. Thanks, Noah, and goodbye, everybody.